On 28 July 2010, through Resolution 64292, the United Nations General Assembly recognized the human right to water and sanitation and acknowledged that clean drinking water is essential to the realization of all human rights. The resolution calls upon states to provide financial resources, help capacity building, and technology transfer to help countries to provide safe, clean, accessible, and affordable drinking water for all.
Water, a basic commodity without which we could not imagine living our lives. The demand to make affordable water access a right on a European level was the inspiration behind Right to Water, one of the very few successful European citizen initiatives. The European Citizen Initiative, that we will refer to as the ECI, is a mechanism of direct democracy that was designed to bring demands from the European public to a level of the institutions. However, it is often being criticized to be not satisfactory and to have too high thresholds. Right to Water proves its image wrong. Until now, only 4 ECIs have made it from the European public to the Commission. Right to Water was the most successful one, but what lies behind their success? That is what we're trying to find out in this documentary. But first, let us have a look at what life without water means on the ground.
Well, if you imagine a situation where basic other rights are granted but not the right to water, and therefore it's not ensured that you might have the access to water by right, that means that you're deprived of actually what you need every day, and that is food, air, and water. So basically, while not having human right water acknowledged as a human right, all other rights, put it that way, are actually not that important, because everything comes from water, your life, your daily needs. So while not having water, all the other rights doesn't really make any sense before we acknowledge actually water as a human right.
Okay, so we found citizens from the UK who actually signed the Right to Water ECI. Maybe you want to tell us how you found out about the ECI?
Yeah, my friend had posted it on Facebook after he got this massive water bill he had.
And what made you interested in signing it in the end?
Well, I think water should be available for everyone, even if you can't afford it, and that it's a human right.
Long term, no life, and before you have health consequences due to lack of clean water. And of course, the spread of diseases increases tremendously if you don't have access to water.
Yeah, but what has to be mentioned here is at some point, you have to find water in some way. So mostly, while not having access to clean drinking water and safe drinking water and basic sanitation hygiene facilities, you might be looking, or a person might be looking for other water sources, and those are obviously then not clean and actually not ready to drink. So therefore, you actually spread diseases like, for example, diarrhea, other stomach bugs that can actually live in the water, and then actually the situation where then the topic of hygiene also kicks in, because you don't have any hygiene facilities. You also start polluting other water sources more and more, and therefore also once infected with a certain virus, for example diarrhea, not having access to water can lead to actually more viruses spread in other unsafe water sources that are then again used by other people who are looking out for the water, because they don't have it. So basically, you can start a whole spread of virus only by lacking water.
Oh, I didn't even see you there. So we learned today that water is an extremely important topic that concerns all of us. Until now, the EU, which is a very important player in this field, focused on liberalizing the single market. That means they were also liberalizing water and sanitation. But we heard that water cannot be treated as a commodity, but has to be seen as a human right. That is why a couple of public service unions from the EU came together to push this topic on the agenda here in Brussels. I mentioned earlier that they did so by using the ECI. Today our reporter Paula speaks to the person responsible for the ECI, Right to Water. But before that, I would like to tell you something more in detail about the ECI, what it is all about and how it works in detail. An ECI starts with the idea for a petition that has to be supported from 7 people from different member states. The proposal then goes to the Commission, which gets 2 months of time to decide on it. If it passes, the initiators have 12 months of time to collect 1 million votes coming from 7 member states, each of them needing a minimum amount of votes depending on the size of the states. After member states concerned verify the signatures, the initiators get to explain their proposal to the Commission and the European Parliament in a public hearing. Of course, the topic of the ECI needs to be within EU competencies. Then the Commission will either accept the proposal or give reasons for not doing so. So we see that there are high thresholds in the process. Now we will hear our reporter speaking to the people behind Right to Water and how they overcame these thresholds.
As campaigns and communications officer of EPSU, the European Federation of Public Services Unions, we were the backbone of the ECI, and therefore I was responsible of the campaigning that the organization did towards the ECI, which was coordinating the national campaign groups and also the media work in Brussels. So we had been working on the issue for many years before 2012. In fact, the decision of the ECI comes from a congress of EPSU in 2009 when the organization voted to do the 1 million signatures petition. It's written like that. And what we really try to do is to develop what I would say organic coordinations, campaigns or groups that would carry on the ECI in member states, in the countries. So we did not want to do a Brussels-based campaign, and this is very common of many ECIs, is Brussels-based organizations thinking on Brussels kind of terms. We wanted to avoid this, and that requires a lot of coming and going with groups locally, nationally, regionally. So I think part of our success was the fact that we work on a very long time span that goes beyond the 12 months. Mm-hmm. And that we did like a series of things that every organization needs to do. So you need to know who are your active members, touch your active members, go to the next layer, and then go to the next layer. And eventually, doing that, this has a multiplying effect. You just don't send an email and wait for that to magically spread. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's rocket science, but you need to be very methodic in how do you campaign in each different country. We did half of the member states, and the half missing is some didn't consider this to be an issue, and some the campaigning was not properly organized. And we had, for instance, the result in France was not the desired one, and I particularly went to France that year between 2012 2013, like about 20. For instance, we had a very bad result in inverted commas in Italy. Mm-hmm. They just had a referendum to avoid water privatization 2 years before, where there was 1,400,000 signatures collected and 27 million people voted against. But we had literally thousands of Italian people that were saying, I'm not signing something that is not binding. This is just not a petition. This is just a Mickey Mouse petition. And that was the time when the Commission, the European Central Bank, was sending letters to the Italian government to privatize water, in spite of the referendum.
There was a stand of people campaigning for this issue, and actually they just informed me about it, and I really found out that I agreed with what they had to say, and that's how I signed.
And what was the main point that actually made you sign this petition?
Well, actually, they made me understand that it's really, of course, it's a human right issue, and we are not that informed in Italy about it, and there were concerns about privatization claims in Italy, so that's why I decided to sign.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So there was not just collecting signatures in workplaces and in public meetings, or just doing the street stalls at public events, or just in social media and Facebook. It was the combination of all of them at different moments. And that's very important to see that as an in crescendo. Because if I do a tweet with my 600 followers will have zero impact. But if this happens after a whole series of things, that particular tweet can actually have a multiplying effect, or a Facebook group. Well, the main campaign storytelling was built about everyone, except for those that oppose the application of the UN criteria of the human right to water. That very concretely is the water multinationals, and very concretely even more, there are two of them. And they are Suez and Veolia, and they have a lobby company called Aquafed, and Aquafed had a 3-page press statement against the ECI, and they were the only ones that were actually outspoken against. For instance, in the European Parliament hearing, you would see that there are very few discording voices to our message. In fact, there's only one, and it's a woman who actually works for the multinationals now. Well, we changed the constitution of Slovenia. Now, that is not our final target, but we did. We got an exclusion of water from the concessions directive, which is the Commission what we offer us, not what we asked. But we certainly have built a European consciousness about it, and there is now a movement of organizations working on the issue. And the Commission is forced, when they talk and deal with water, to mention us. I mean, the Drinking Water Directive they just published is one of example. It's a useful campaigning tool, but it has its dark sides or downsides that you need to take into account. It's very costly. It's not user friendly, to say to use an expression. But it is a tool that is useful if it's used in the right way.
I didn't know about this initiative before, but I've been reading about the issue for a while now, and I came across it on another website where there's also other petitions on the right to water.
And what did make you sign this petition in the end?
I think water is a basic human right, and we all need to drink a couple of liters every day to stay alive and be healthy, and the idea of this becoming a commercialized product is frightening to me, to be honest.
We used our wide network and visibility, highlighting how much it is relevant to health. And when it was successful, we were also part of the follow-up actions, and we put our weight behind it. This was the first one, obviously, first ECI. Obviously, it meant visibility. It raised awareness about the issue, and it definitely was helpful for the cause. But if you look at the policy side, the picture is a bit less positive, naming that the Commission doesn't really follow it up. So if you look at what happened afterwards, you have seen a bit redress what the Commission was planning to do anyway. They issued a communication, they listed the actions the EU is doing, so they gave an inventory of it, but we didn't really see the added value, the change. The whole ECI is behind it, and not a surprise. If the EU fails to fulfill the spirit of it, if there is no meaningful change, then it is questionable whether the ECI can achieve actually what is its aim, basically bringing the EU closer to citizens. So it is not a surprise that the interest in ECI is falling now, and this is partially because the Commission didn't do it properly, what actually the citizens wanted. I think the idea is good, and it is, the EU should be brought closer to the citizens, but maybe it is not the right way to do it if we don't do it properly. We design an ECI, but whenever it brings an issue to the EU table, then we just, as an EU, we do not follow up, and I don't think this is the right approach. We have to look at what does matter for citizens. If you look at the Eurostat studies and statistics, you can see that health, for example, is very highly rated. 70% of the citizens would like more EU actions on health.
Today we got an insight on how the ECI works in practice. Pablo Sanchez, who was the main initiator of Right to Water, also gave us an idea on how to make an ECI successful. He emphasized that they needed a lot of planning ahead, as well as a network in a couple of different member states. EPSO also benefited from the fact that water access is a uniquely important issue. As he said, Doing an ECI doesn't have to be rocket science, but it does need a lot of planning and coordination. Such an infrastructure cannot be provided by a regular citizen. That might be problematic for a mechanism that is called the European Citizens Initiative. I thank you for watching and hope you will tune in again next Thursday.